The agenda this week checked in on difficulties roiling student unions in the province, considered Canada's shifting musical identity, and examined a growing affordability gap in Hamilton. The agenda's Week in Review begins considering what climate change might mean for the future of food. Let's set this up, and Mr. Director, if you would mind bringing this graphic up so we can share this information with those watching and listening on podcast. According to the Arrow Food Institute, farmers will have to produce 50% more food to feed a population of more than 9 billion people by the year 2050. 50% more food. However, climate models show that global crop production will decline every decade for the rest of this century due to drought, heat, and flooding. Climate change may reduce crop yields by 2% per decade over the next 100 years. Another estimate by the National Academy of Sciences in 2011 says that for every degree Celsius that the global thermostat rises, there will be a 5 to 15% decrease in overall crop production. Climate change also puts some of our tastiest foods in peril, including coffee, wine grapes, cherries, citrus fruits, and cacao. Is that how you say that?
Cacao.
Cacao, okay.
Cocoa.
In the words of food writer Amanda Little, quote, all the delicious foods are dying. Okay, we've got a serious disconnect here, and I want to start with Janet in Washington. Can you tell us, in your view, to what extent climate change is affecting our food system today?
Significantly. The impacts of climate change are already being felt globally. The yield of wheat has fallen. And as the temperature changes in precipitation and sea level rise hit in, we're going to see a lot worse. And this challenge is sort of exacerbated by the point that you made, Steve, which is that we have to increase the food produced by our system by 56%, actually around 56% between now and 2050, while contending with climate change impacts, as well as restricting the expansion of agriculture into the remaining forests, and doing this within a greenhouse gas emissions budget. So what I like to call the mother of all sustainability challenges, how to feed the world sustainably.
Indeed, it sounds like it. Tom, let me get you to follow up, because the food writer I just quoted, Amanda Little, has said that we can actually taste climate change in our food today. Can we?
I think it's true. I think maybe it's a little bit less true in the United States and maybe North America, in sort of the English-speaking part of North America, because we are, so far we are prosperous enough to where we have a steady supply of inexpensive food despite a bunch of recent shocks. But I think that what we're seeing is a fraying around the edges. We saw massive storms in the Midwest last year. This is our corn belt. This is our bread basket. And the storms didn't end up causing a lot of yield drop. They caused some yield drop. They caused some acres not to be planted. But the real hidden impact that I think that we are yet to see is the washing away of soil. Basically because the way that our food system works in the Corn Belt, which is the sort of upper Midwest of the United States, you basically have two crops grown, corn and soybeans, and nothing on the ground in the winter and spring. It's completely bare ground. So when these spring storms come raging in, you've got soil vulnerable to washing away, and that's exactly what happened last year. And so I think we're still at the beginning of seeing the effects of climate change here in the global north. And I think it's different in the global south. I think they've felt it more. And in the foods that you mentioned, we are seeing, those will be getting more expensive for sure.
Lori, let me get you into this in as much as the pollinators. We depend on the pollinators for a lot of our food. And what impact do you see climate change having on our pollinators?
Definitely climate change is having an impact on pollinators. About 1/3 of our food is actually directly related to pollination and could not be produced without pollinators.
Name names.
All sorts of fruits and vegetables and tree fruits and things like almonds. It's actually a situation now where in California, they are bringing in bees that will pollinate the almond trees because there are not enough pollinators around. And we're seeing that all over the world. There's no question that this is a major issue. But there's an awful lot we can do about that.
Hold off
and
on
we
that.
will get into that.
We are surely going to do that. We're going to identify the problem first and then see if there's anything we can do about it. How about the fisheries, Philip? What is the impact on the fisheries so far of climate change?
You know, I'm glad you brought up fisheries because a lot of times they're left out, and fish are one of the most traded and consumed commodities in the world. About 20% of our protein comes from fish globally. And, you know, as the atmosphere warms, a lot of people don't realize that much of the warming, maybe as much as 80%, is going into the oceans first. So you warm up water and you can imagine what happens. Fish go in different places, ecosystems change, predator-prey relationships decouple, and so you either see fish species that we're fishing for move north for colder waters, or move poleward rather, or they go deeper. And that has real implications for fishermen and fishing livelihoods, but also when we see sort of major population disruptions like in BC, Pacific coastal salmon or pollock, it impacts the market.
I have read accounts from, I guess, fishers, we call them now, right? Fishers, who say, that stuff in my net, I've never seen that before. We don't usually see that stuff up here. Bizarre, eh?
It is, and you know, you see species of salmon going up into Arctic rivers that you haven't seen. Well, there's oral histories about them being there, but not in a long time. And in the tropics, this is you know, where people rely on as much as 80% of their protein from the sea. Those fish can't tolerate much warmer waters, and so the entire livelihoods around fisheries will be really impacted.
Janet, to you for this one, CO2, of course, is a greenhouse gas, but it's also plant food. And I wonder what effect has more CO2 in the atmosphere had on the plants that we eat?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because some of the earlier Intergovernment Panel on Climate Change studies thought that actually increasing CO2 concentration in the atmosphere would actually increase food productivity. And to some degree it does, but some of the adverse impacts around weather changes kind of counter that. But I just want to go back to your quick question about, you know, can you actually taste climate change? Because there has been some research that shows that actually the nutrient quality of food actually declines under an increasing CO2 concentration in the atmosphere. So maybe you can't quite taste that, but certainly it has effect on the nutritional quality of food.
Gotcha. I'm going to read an excerpt here from a book that's coming out in a couple of months called Uncertain Harvest, and this will set the table for our discussion to come. Mr. Director, if you would. The complex web of imports and exports that makes up our current global food system itself looks a lot like the global banking system just before the 2008 crash. It's a system in which a few nations supply a disproportionate quantity of food to the rest of the world, in which a few major global transportation nodes facilitate much of the world's trade, in which 8 crops provides 3/4 of the world's calories, and in which a handful of multinational corporations control up to 90% of the world's grain trade. It doesn't take much to imagine a scenario in which something might happen. One of the first things that the new Doug Ford Progressive Conservative government did was essentially introduce something called the Student Choice Initiative. And Emma, I'm going to rely on you here to sort of remind our viewers what that was all about.
Sure. So it was basically a policy directive that came top down, which stated that previously mandatory parts of students' tuition were now not mandatory. Students could opt out of them if they chose to do so. So things that were mandatory included like athletics, campus safety initiatives, things like that. And things that were not mandatory were students' unions, student presses, student course unions, groups, that kind of things. Students didn't have to pay for them. So of course, that also came with a whole host of cuts to OSAP. And so when people at the CFS went to the Ontario government and asked for that policy directive to be repealed, to be struck down, which did happen. One of the things that they discussed in court was that, this initiative, which is supposed to be saving students money, came with all of this stuff, these OSAP cuts, which inherently are costing students so much more money. And of course, at the same time, defunding student press and student unions, which provide a vital service for campuses.
Jonathan, I'll get you to pick up the story in as much as, this was portrayed by the provincial government as, we want to give students the right not to have to spend money on things they don't want to spend it on. What's your view of that approach?
I think that the Student Choice Initiative, for the most part, was a good thing. You should be able to opt out of certain things like the CFS, because they don't
Canadian Federation of Students.
They don't represent my views. They don't represent students I've spoken with. I believe that you should be able to opt out of the RSU as well, because if you don't like the agenda of the current student union, then you should be able to opt out of it. However, there are things that should be mandatory. I believe that campus press should be mandatory because they're the watchdogs on campus. They provide people with accountability. So should walk-safe programs and anything involving campus safety and health. That should be mandatory. But for the most part, it's a pretty good policy.
What about the argument that people watching this, they may not all love Doug Ford's government, but you still got to pay your taxes. You don't get to not pay taxes just because you disagree with some of the policy pronouncements from the government. Isn't that the same thing here?
That's a little different because government we're all mandated under. We all live in Ontario, therefore we all have to pay taxes. Whereas with the student union, it's kind of like, if I don't like that, then maybe I don't want to have this representative. Maybe I don't agree with the agenda. It's kind of a different thing because it's not really an official government, it's just a student government.
Well, I bet students think it's pretty official, or some of them do anyway. Anyway, let me go on to Sam. That was a little aside. Sam, given this student, what's it called, Student Choice Initiative, what kind of challenges or problems did that pose for you when students were no longer obligated to pay for some of the things that they had to in the past?
Yeah. Well, the first problem was budgeting, because we have to present our budget before we knew what the opt-out rate was going to be. So when it comes to budgeting for the different services that we wanted to open, it was very, very difficult to do that. It also meant inevitably a reduction in services, a reduction in the amount of staff that we could bring on, which means that some of the services that student unions provide, which are very important to students and very important to all students, couldn't be funded as well as it would have been otherwise. So it leads to all kinds of issues in that sense. I think there are other ways that we can go about it. And tying back into the last conversation we had about RSU, I mean, it was a student paper who uncovered that. It was a student paper at our university who uncovered it, Hackathon. So to not properly fund student papers is inevitably going to lead to, worse ethics at the student union level, less accountability.
Emma, let me figure out from you, what is the status now about whether or not students who go to Ryerson are obliged through their fees to support the eye-opener?
So I believe Ryerson took down their opt-out portal, so students can no longer opt out, and they have started collecting fees once more. Students are now obligated to pay for the eye-opener, whether they like it or not.
Is that a good thing?
I think it is. Perhaps they don't think it is. I don't want to ever say, people come from different situations, and sometimes $5 means the difference between making rent or not. But there are also a whole host of students who are saying, well, it's a good thing that I get to opt out of paying for the eye-opener because, they're a left-wing campus newspaper and their reporting is inherently biased, and we don't like them.
Actually, I think the Premier said more than that. He said the student funds end up going to a bunch of crazy Marxist nonsense.
Exactly.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
Is that what you guys are?
Maybe. Maybe that's the perception. I don't think we are. I think we're pretty balanced in our reporting, but of course there are always people who are going to disagree with how we report.
Sure, that's the way it works. Jen, what's the university's position on whether or not this Student Choice Initiative is a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, our approach to the Student Choice Initiative is similar to what it is on all of these types of aspects. We partnered with our student groups and those who receive fees and talked about what was the requirement of the directive and how could we move forward to preserve as much student life on campus as possible. We recognize the value of the services that are provided, and so we engaged in deep conversations with the Eye Opener, with the radio station, with the RSU about what we could do within the confines of the expectations on us of that directive. So we
But did you oppose the policy?
Compliant. It's not really the university's place to say whether we oppose or support. There was a directive that came with very clear consequences, and so we feel like we struck a really strong balance of preserving as much, including some components of campus media that remained mandatory. And then once the directive was struck down, we did remove the option for students to opt out of fees and continue to collect them as mandatory.
You could infer from that you were opposed to the idea of letting this skate.
Could you?
I think you could.
I think we believe in the value of services that are provided by students. I think we've also demonstrated quite strongly that we don't believe that should be unchecked, that there has to be accountability for that.
Sure. Okay, I understand the tightrope that the university has to walk on this, but the Federation of Students felt no similar tightrope. What did you do about it?
No, so we filed a legal challenge against the Student Choice Initiative. So it was the Canadian Federation of Students with the York Federation of Students, under the fact that the Student Choice Initiative was a direct attack on the democracy of students' unions. Students have established students' unions and different student organizations through democratic referendum on their campuses. And if there are to be changes to those funds, it's through referendum that those decisions are made.
We have a lot of, well, you want to call them new international superstars on the scene. We got Drake, we got The Weeknd, we got Alessia Cara. I mean, the list goes on. They are unapologetically more out there than these other guys. How do you regard it?
I think that there's a couple of things that are happening at the same time. One, the world is more out there. We live in a social media world where, you know, you can see everything that's happening. Before, you didn't know if Diana Ross was like eating today, like if she went to Chipotle or something like. But now you have the
I
opportunity.
can't imagine Diana Ross at Chipotle.
Not the Chipotle.
Okay.
Right about
But
that.
you know, like now we can see everything. So I think that the two things that are happening is that we have mega stars from Boy Wonder, who, you know, is winning a ton of producer awards, to Party Next Door, who's a really well-regarded writer, to 1985. Even the people behind the scenes in music right now are writing for some of the biggest stars in the world. So, you know, this idea of modesty changing, I think, people forget that urban music as well comes from a place of bravado, right? It was a place of, I need to be seen, I want to be seen.
I think you described it as braggadociousness.
Like I'm here I am, because urban music typically in when we talked about genres was a disregarded genre, and that is a big part of the reason that I think it's so much more in our face now on the Canadian landscape, because we have some of the biggest urban stars in the world, and urban just transitioned from being its own genre to pop music. It is officially pop music now.
John, let me get your take on that, though, because there is a certain, again, to use Rooksy's word here, there's a certain braggadociousness about this new upcoming or I guess now established generation of Canadian superstars that Anne Murray would not have gone for that kind of thing. Gordon Lightfoot was not out there bragging about how fantastic he was. How's this transition going?
Sure. It's also a bit of recontextualization of what pop music is, as Rooks pointed out. You have to consider what the braggadociousness, if that's a word, you have to kind of put that in the context of hip-hop music, and also put what Gord Downie did in the context of kind of localization of rock music. The way that both consider authenticity is a little different. So when you look at someone, since I'm in New York, I'm going to perhaps bring up the Velvet Underground, which in rock was a very, very specific band. They spoke about New York, and that let them an air of authenticity. But I don't, it would be very hard to consider them a pop band per se. Whereas someone like Drake, that kind of taking his city on his back is considered a good thing, and it allows him to speak to a larger audience. So putting that all in context and coaching it in that idea, you get a different sense of what is possible in terms of kind of taking your city on your back, or taking your country on your back, and saying, yes, I'm from this place, yes, this place is great, and everybody should come to me rather than me pretending I'm from New York.
Alan.
There was always a big deal about rock bands selling out, selling out their art. With hip hop and rap and the current pop environment, it's not about selling out, it's about cashing in, which is a completely different thing. And that is leading to, again, this braggadociousness, which is an essential part of this music.
Well, I also think it has to do with the fact that if you actually go back to the roots of hip-hop, everybody would, and I'm sure Aaron can speak to this, it was a part of creating music that I'm from the Bronx, I'm from Atlanta, I'm from Texas. So I think that now that the music, it's always been weaved into the fabric since day one in the culture of the music. So now that we actually have our own Canadian
what neighborhood
stars,
were you from? What city were you from?
That was always a part of the music from 30 years ago until this day. And so our stars being from this space, because you don't see Alessia Cara saying, hey, I'm Canadian in every song, but if you have people that are from a genre where it's important to, represent your culture, to bring your culture to the forefront, that is always what hip hop has done from day one.
You don't see it with The Weeknd, you don't see it with Alessia Cara, you don't see it with Justin Bieber. You do see it with Drake.
Yeah.
He has, been the city's greatest ambassador.
The
country's greatest ambassador since, I don't know who.
Yeah.
Now you've worked with Drake, have you not?
I have had the opportunity to say that, yes.
And okay, so for my generation, help explain how he put Toronto on the map.
Well, I think that in so many ways, from just one, he's an incredible writer, and people in the industry love him for his writing, and so he's done a lot for other artists. He has really openly claimed Toronto. A lot of stars and a lot of people, when they work in entertainment from Canada, go and live in LA, they go and live in New York. Drake is here over this summer playing volleyball with his friends, up by Yorkdale, or, he's created things in Toronto like OVO Bounce, OVO Fest. He's done so many things to bring back.
Got that nice crib on the bridal path.
I was just going to say, he's created a lot of jobs up there, too.
Exactly. He built his home
moreover,
in Toronto.
Go ahead, John.
Moreover, he's also done the summit. He's made Toronto and the idea of Toronto an important part of his music and his global brand.
Well, and I guess, Aaron, I mean, the whole Raptors thing, too, has just, he's so closely associated with Toronto Raptors basketball.
Right.
And that's international now.
Absolutely. I think there's one missing element from this, this narrative is that rap has never been seen as a profitable genre in Canada. So to have somebody like Drake and to have the producers that he works with and to have artists like Murda Beats, all these artists that are coming up and making this international money for us, and to say, I am Canadian, that's something that's so important. And that's something that has allowed the industry at large in Canada to start recognizing us and start accepting that, hip hop is pop music. And it is an important genre for the entire industry to start paying attention to.
Steve, we're going to pick up on your really quite excellent series for the Spec and share some of these facts with our viewers, and then we'll do a little Q&A after that. So Sheldon, if you would, let's bring this graphic up. Here are the results 10 years after Steve began his Code Red project, looking at the quality of life in Hamilton. And one of the things he found was that of 13 indicators, 10 decreased, meaning the quality of life in those 10 areas got worse. Only 2 increased significantly. Emergency room visits went up 30% over the decade, while the population of Hamilton only increased by 6%, and emergency room visits for psychiatric reasons went up by 60%. Okay, Steve, these are a few of the categories that we looked at. You looked at many other indicators, such as what?
I think the one that probably shocked people the most was the gap in lifespan between the best and the worst neighborhoods in Hamilton. So we found 10 years on from the original project, a 23-year difference in lifespan between the best and the worst neighborhoods. We have a neighborhood in Hamilton where the average lifespan in 2016, 2017 was 64.8 years. I mean, that doesn't even get you to your pension. And to have that kind of outcome worse than Eritrea and Sudan, these are third world outcomes in a city and a country as rich as Hamilton or as Canada, and that's just frankly both horrifying and shocking.
You want to say what neighborhood it was?
It's a neighborhood right near the downtown, so it's in a really challenged part of the city. But I think what's really important is these huge disparities that we're seeing across the city, and these disparities time and time and time again are the same. The wealthy parts of the city have good outcomes, and the poor parts of the city have really, really bad outcomes, and that's what's discouraging.
Let's ask the obvious follow-up question, which is what contributes to all of that?
I think that I think there's 2 things. One, Hamilton still has high rates of poverty, but more importantly has really concentrated areas of poverty, and just we're seeing income inequality is actually growing across the city. So just the fact that we have these huge disparities in wealth is what really leads to poor health.
Laura, can you help us understand that? Because I've looked at the numbers here, and there are some neighborhoods where the poverty rate, the percentage of people in poverty, is 4.5%. And there are other neighborhoods where it's literally almost half the people. How does that happen?
There are a few factors. One, there are neighborhoods, because they're economically depressed, that attract more people simply because of rental rates and what people can afford. So people tend to congregate in areas that they'll be able to afford to live in. But I think the increase is directly related to income precarity, people finding it more and more difficult to live. We've seen rental rates rise, and people's incomes are not following suit. So people are moving or trying to move, not always successfully, and trying to find a way to make something work that's really impossible.
Sarah, from your experience, can you share some insight as to why the poverty seems to be so concentrated?
Well, you know, I mean, Hamilton, we're experiencing what many cities across Canada are experiencing. It's not Hamilton specific. Toronto has higher poverty rates than Hamilton, higher rates of inequality than Hamilton. What's different maybe in Hamilton is that cities like Toronto have sort of exported a lot of their poverty outside of the downtown into the older suburban areas, and it's less visible on an everyday basis to people who pay attention and should be paying more attention to these things. And so in Hamilton, there's when we do a map of poverty in Hamilton, yes, it's more concentrated in the lower city, but that doesn't mean the suburbs have found a way to solve poverty that the lower city hasn't. What we're mapping is where are affordable rents, where is affordable housing in Hamilton, and most of the social housing has been built in the lower city, and so it's a good thing in a way in that there is higher rates of social housing in Hamilton than in other cities. So that protects people from these high rates of rental, but it's not, we need those kind of affordable housing options in all parts of the city, in all cities across Canada.
And that's just some of what we covered this week on the agenda. For more, including the full conversations, you can always visit our website. That's tvo.org, our YouTube channel at youtube.com/theagenda, or our Twitter feed. That's twitter.com/theagenda.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario. CPA Ontario is a regulator, an educator, a thought leader, and an advocate. We protect the public. We advance our profession. We guide our CPAs. We are CPA Ontario. And by viewers like you. Thank you.